Welcome to another episode of Gospel Entrepreneurs podcast in partnership with UCB and Revelation Trust. And I'm so excited because we're now picking up again with Paul Cowley. You remember last time, Paul, who was a vicar at HTB and then worked particularly with prisons and Alpha, and then was a chaplain in a London prison, then got a brand new role as a director round the top table of Iceland supermarket chain. It was a brand new role, brand new job to take people from prison and employ them. I think it was called, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, it was kind of bringing those people into regular employment. But you had a new title, didn't you?
So the owner and founder, Sir Malcolm Walker, made up the title for me while we were having a coffee, and he said, I think I'm going to call you Director of Rehabilitation, because we want to rehabilitate these men and women and get them working and get them so they don't go back to prison. So that's how the title came about, really.
Over a cup of coffee. Most things flow out of cups of coffee in random conversation. So my guest today is Paul Cowley, who is director in Iceland for Rehabilitation. So how's it been going, Paul? Give us a bit of an update.
Roy, it's great to be on the podcast again, and especially to update. It's been going really well. It's been challenging and it's hard. It's a startup, so anyway, and I love startups. I do get bored shortly after that, but I do like startups and initiating stuff. So it's been good. I've been working with as you said, it's quite a big food chain organization, Iceland Foods. It's got over 1,000 stores, with stores coming online. Their food warehouse, new idea, every month. 30,000 employers, 9 distribution units. So it's a big thing to start something that they weren't doing. So working with HR, safeguarding, all that stuff. I've had to start from scratch, but it's 6 months in now, and it's fun. It's starting to work. I've interviewed, I think, over 130, 140 face-to-face men and women in prisons so far. And we've, out of that 130, I think, I've selected about 80 for employment, 80 plus. And we've got, to date, it changes every day, we've got about 30 plus in store working, driving and working in the stores, in the teams, with another 15 waiting to go in as I speak. And some I've lost. They've been recalled, they've failed drug tests, they haven't turned up, but it's going well. It's going all right. I never knew, I knew I'd never get everybody, but it's going all right for a startup.
And Paul, it must have been a massive change for you, coming out of HTB, a local vicar, to director of a big corporate company. How did that go, Paul? Because you sensed this, hey, God was in this. You sensed, I remember you saying last time that God had something else for you. You didn't know what that was going to be. And then this came along, and it was like a whole new space that you were going to walk into. How's that bit been? Reverend Paul Cowley sitting as a director of Iceland.
I know. I mean, I explained a little bit on the first chat we did, but, when I had the chat with Sir Malcolm, and, after a few conversations, he said, well, what do you want to do this? And I remember saying to him, and I didn't know a lot about his organization. I knew Iceland. Everyone knows Iceland stores. But I did say to him, well, you need to hire somebody, at director level. They need to be on the executive committee. They need to, have some clout. It needs some strategy. They need to be very senior. And that's when he said, okay. And then I didn't quite realize what a director means at Iceland. There's only 12 of them, and I'm one of them. And I didn't realize what I was asking for when I asked for it. He obviously did and wasn't worried. So it's been fun. Every Monday morning, they have a directors meeting, which, if I'm in Chester, I sit on most of the time. And it's a pretty fast and furious each director one director is in charge of frozen food, one is in charge of, I don't know, vegetables, one's in charge of international, and they all give this feedback, and they're not interrogated, but they're responsible for a 4.8 billion pound turnover company. And I'm sat there, which is it's just fun, and I'm learning lots, and they're great. And they all know I'm a reverend. I don't walk around with that title on me anymore, but they all know. So just little bits come up in conversation, and I can throw my bit in as the priest, which is quite funny. So it's to answer your question, I'm enjoying it really. It's fun.
And how's it been walking out of what essentially was a church-based environment um, into a big corporate, and isn't that a massive transition? Or do you feel, no, I think there was God's preparation? Just give me some of that, Paul. I think our hearers would love to know what that looks like.
Well, like it says in Jeremiah, God has a plan, doesn't he, for all of us, a good and perfect plan. So for me, he did a lot of preparation, I think, as you know the story in detail. But for me, the transition has been fine. I mean, I love it. They're just such good people. There's a bit more swearing. The language is a bit more colourful. It can be a bit more brutal in some ways. But what I love about it is it's really straight talking. And I like that. That's the type of character I am. If I'm doing something wrong, tell me. Don't mess around the bushes with it. Just tell me and let's sort it out and move on. So they're a little bit like that. They work hard, they play hard, they've accepted me, for who I am. I turned up one Monday morning, sat in the director's seat. They didn't have a clue who I was. And they've been brilliant. And I have lots of little conversations, are you so you're a vicar? I go, yeah, I'm always a priest. Right. At what? And you were in prison? Yeah. And you're now a director here? I go, yeah. And a couple of things have been classic. My friend's baby's getting baptized. What does that mean? So I get chance to talk to people like that, and I love it. So the transition has been. It reminds me a little bit of when I was in the army, 17 years in the army. It's a big secular organization, and I love the directness of it, actually. Especially with Iceland Foods, their heart that they've got for the marginalized and the poor, really. They're helping people, and they work in some quite deprived areas. I found something out the other day, Roy, which I thought was really to their credit. So they have a home delivery service. They have 5,000 vans that go out and do the deliveries. If you buy so much, you get it for free. And I realized that Iceland Foods go into every single postcode that you can think of. And I thought, well, that's normal. But some of the big boys in the retail organization have restricted postcodes because they're too dangerous or too rough to send people into. Iceland's don't give a monkeys. And I love it because that's the type of people they are. They go into the really rough areas and deliver food, whereas some of the other chain stores won't go into those areas for obvious reasons. So you can see their heart. That's what I love about them.
And the director must enforce those values. So he wouldn't be a Christian, but obviously it's a value-based caring for the poor, and obviously the way they price things and all of that is exactly the heart of this chain, isn't it, really?
It is, and Richard Walker, who's the managing director and chairman now, who's, to say that, he's at the moment heading for the base camp of Mount Everest to climb it with another partner to raise money for dementia, which his mother died of. Malcolm's wife died of the dementia. So he's climbing that thing with another mate to raise money to help people suffering dementia and Alzheimer's. So it's right at the top, excuse the pun, that they care for people. And he wants to raise over £1 million to open a dementia centre, a dedicated place where they can do research. And they've raised over 35 million pounds for various charities in the last sort of 25, 30 years. So they have really got a heart that I didn't know about. I know they're, socially connected. They're a community-based store, but I didn't realize the heart that they have, which I love and fits exactly in with what I want to do.
So, getting on to what you're doing, how's it going in recruiting people out of prison to kind of connect? You said you've been interviewed. Did you say 130?
Yeah, about 130.
And how is that going? Because obviously you worked in the prison system. The biggest challenge, I remember you saying last time, was when they come out of prison, getting employment, getting that. So this is a real answer to prayer or gift to you to be able to do that. And you've had some successes, some failures. Give us a couple of those stories, Paul. We'd love to hear some of those.
Yeah, yeah, it's not easy work. I think, what I've learned over the 20 odd years of being in the justice sector and, starting charities to help men and women come out of prison. I think one of the hardest things to do is come out of prison and try and lead a normal life. I really don't care what any expert might say. I think it's almost impossible if you've been in prison for a considerable amount of time to come out and quickly re-establish being back into society. I think it's almost impossible to do that. I really do, because prison messes you up. If you commit a crime, I'm all for that. You get punished by society and you go to prison, but you're meant to be rehabilitated and come out better than you went in. That's the theory. And while you're in there, your punishment is your loss of liberty. But we still got men. A profile of a man or a woman in prison is still coming from a dysfunctional home, mostly alcoholics. Over half have been in care. 70% have a mental health illness. The reading age of 11. So, and I can go on. So you can see the cohort that I'm working with is right down there, trying to re-establish themselves back into society and holding down a job. If they can hold down the job and not go back to prison, then that's a success. So I found out really that it's just really hard work for a man or a woman to come out of prison and re-establish themselves in employment. But they are doing that. And the opportunity I get is to go in, I set the protocols that the organizations have asked me to work with, which is not a lot. And then what's happened in the prison system in the last few years is good. They've got this thing called PELs, Prison Employment Lead People, which is the one person that really looks after the reducing reoffending. Before, it was a nightmare. Nobody knew who was doing what. So they've set up these PELs, and there's 98 of them in most of the prisons, and they're the one person that you can contact. So I work with them, and I say to them, these are the protocols that I want. Find me some men or women that fit those, put them in front of me, and I interview them, and I spend about 15, 20 minutes with each, and I ask them a few questions based on experience, and then I go away and I make a decision. That's my responsibility. Who gets the letter saying, well done, you're through to the next stage, or I'm sorry, we can't offer you a job at this time.
And what are you looking for, Paul, when you interview them? How do you kind of assess that in 15 minutes?
Well, first of all, so there's been a selection process. So, I don't mind saying that the protocols I work with and what I've been asked to work with are no one who's on the sex offenders register, no one who's committed an act of terrorism, no one who's committed arson, no one who's taken a life, and they need to be work ready. That's based on experience from the PEL, and ready to go and being released in 8 to 10 weeks. So I say that to the PEL, and then they select. So when the ones are sat in front of me, I've already gone through a filter system. And then what I do then, I ask them, it's about 15, 20 questions. They don't know it's that formal. I'm just chatting. But I can get out of them, based on experience, if I think they're ready and they'll fit into a team. because Iceland is all about teams. You know, in the shops, the drivers, I'm recruiting for home delivery drivers and retail assistants. So it's all team orientated. And like I said earlier, they work really hard. The stores open at 6 a.m. and they shut at 10 p.m. Mostly 7 days a week. So they, shift work, they work really hard. So the person has to be able to fit and work within a team with all the nuances that brings up, because people are tricky, aren't they? So they have to have that ability to be able to do that. I get a lot of that from the prison employment lead, who knows them a lot more than I do. So that's one of the criteria. And I chat with them, and to be honest, I don't know, I just think I can tell. On what I do is I come away with that sheet of maybe 10 or 15, and I reassess it and I look at it and I pray. And I ask for guidance, because it's a big responsibility. I'm either saying yes or no to somebody for employment, but that's what rests on my shoulders. And so that's how I assess it. Do I get it wrong? Probably. The ones that I've put in, I've stayed in so far since October, which is a miracle, which is brilliant. And the ones that I've lost, I've only lost them because they haven't quite turned up, if you know what I mean. So they haven't been in and failed. In fact, no, one got rearrested while they were working. Yeah, so it's working, and I'm in touch with a lot of them. It's getting a bit hard to be in touch with them. I'm trying to pass to them, if that makes sense. But there's 30 odd now. I can't quite keep up. So we're just maybe thinking of get someone else on the team. So I've got one here. This is a guy I put into work. Let's call him Alfred. It's not, but that's his name. Hi, good morning, Paul. It's Alfred here. I'm delighted to have joined Iceland. It's my second day on shift. Thanks for the opportunity you have given me. It's boosted my morale and my confidence levels, and I'm proud to be part of a team like Iceland. That was one that was sent to me, which, is amazing. I don't get them all the time. I've got another one here. Hello, Paul. It's John from Darlington. Just wanted to let you know that I've done 32 hours this week, and I went out on my own as a home delivery driver for the first time. It went really well. I'm absolutely loving being back in a work environment. I really love my job, and the staff here are terrific. It's quite a thing, but it's keeping me fit and active and physically and mentally strong and keeping me out of trouble. Thank you for the opportunity that Iceland's have given me to change my life. That's just two.
Which is amazing, Paul. So when you make these calls, you're actually giving them, if they take it, a massive opportunity, Paul, aren't you, really, for rehabilitating them?
Yes, and I say to them, it's not going to be easy. They think, yes, boss, I want 40 hours. I want to start straight away on Monday. And what I've learned, I've said to them, look, why don't we offer you, 10 to 15 hours a week work first? Stay on your benefits. Do your 15, because you can earn up to 6. You can do 16 hours before your benefits are affected. Stay on that at first, and then get yourself used to being out, because as soon as you come out of a prison, you have all your demons flying at you, all your temptations, all your issues. You got your housing, you got your kids, you got your partner, you got to sign on, you got probation. And trying to do all that and do 40 hours, I'm telling you, based on experience, you're going to fail. So I do say that to them, and I say, let's do 10 to 15, 16 hours. And then when you're ready, they'll increase the shifts, and you can start to come off benefits and increase your wage and take it easy like that. Now, I never used to say that, Roy. I used to say, the black and white, come on, let's get you off benefits. Let's get you working. Let's get you paying back to. And it's not as black and white as that. I think it's a gradual sort of coming in back into society again. And it's really hard work. And most of them say, like those two, that guy's doing 32 hours now, but he's been in there for over 2 months. So, and he started on 7 to 10 hours. And if they're good, they will get more shifts. So I think they're keen to work. They may be a bit naive of their own expectations. And I'm trying to stop them failing, if that makes sense, by being easy on themselves.
Yeah, and do they, when they go into the team or into the stores, Paul, do they know, does anybody know where they've come from? How does that work? Is there a prejudice or how do you transition in that space as well?
So there's something like 15 regional managers, then there's 110 area managers, and then there's over 1,000 plus store managers. So I'm working my way through all of them, telling them the story. So I've got all the regional managers that, they're the big wigs. I've got those on board. I've met with all of them, and they say, "So how did you get into this?" And then you get an opportunity to tell your story, and that changes people's hearts, I think, the story. And then I've met with possibly just over a quarter of all the area managers. I'm on team meetings. I'm traveling to see where they're gathered together, talking to them. So is there a prejudice? Probably with some people. Have I come across it yet? No, not yet. Do the guys know about the people I'm putting in? They know they're coming through the rehabilitation scheme that Iceland Foods is now operating. And as the director of that, they know if I send them somebody, in one way they have to take them because I'm a director, but we don't work like that, do we? They have to trust me that I've done a complete filter system, and who I'm sending you is as safe as anybody who walks in your store on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And you've had some successes. You said you'd had one failure that wasn't really a failure. What was that, Paul?
Well, some of them, I said it's a complicated system which is getting easier day by day because I like easy. So I meet them in prison, I send them a letter, they come out, they get allocated a store, then they go for what's called a meet and greet at the store. It's not a second interview because I've done the interview. So if they get a letter from me, they have a job. And based on experience, I think that's really important because that raises hope. And we all know about hope, don't we? So that's important, and it's got my name on the bottom, so it's a promise. So then they have to get to the store, and sometimes, from being released to get into their home, wherever that is, their mum, their gran, their probation hostel, or whatever it is, their partner. Sometimes even that journey is difficult, and they get lost. Theologically they get lost, or they get caught up, or someone offers them something, or they don't quite get the call, or they miss it, and then they think they're abandoned, and they go off and have a drink. So I lose some of them before they even get to the store, which is sad. And then they disappear, and I just find it hard to trace them. I give them 10 days from being released to make themselves available, and if they don't, then they kind of come off the list because I can't mess the organization about that much. I say this in the interview. You've got 10 days from when you initiate your call, and then you will be called within those 10 days to go for a coffee at a store and a chat and get to know the team. If you don't do it in 10 days, you'll lose the opportunity, and that's up to you. So that was one. And then I'm just thinking of different stories. Most of the people I take are on license. If your listeners don't know what that is, if you get an 8-year sentence, you'll serve 4. And then if you behave yourself, you get released early, but you're on 4 years license. So if you make a mistake, you're back in for your 4 years. That's what they do. So most of the people I take are on license. And during that time, it might be 18 months, might be 2 years, might be 3 years, they have to report to probation. And so one of the guys got a job, was working for us, missed his probation slot by 2 hours, and they recalled him for 18 months of his sentence that was left. Now, I think that's absolutely stupid and ridiculous. So we had a phone call with probation, or I did. He got released again, and he's just gone back into store again. So that was one that was his fault. He was stupid. I said to him, don't be late again, or you're not getting a second chance. So he knows he has to go to probation, but probation have to be a little bit lenient and understand that the guy's working now and he's got, all that stuff. And then one guy was, he failed his drug test. He's on license. So because his crime was drugs, every so often probation will make him do a standard drug test in the probation office. a urine test, and he failed 3 of those, so he got recalled. So I lost him. So that so that happens, or some just don't turn up. But
I
some
love
of
the
them,
term Paul lost. Interesting theological implications there. You lost him.
I lost him. Well, I do. If we're getting Christian, I think the enemy grabs these people and doesn't want them to succeed, and does everything that he can to fail them and get them back into prison, because that's where the enemy wants us to be. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. That's where he wants these people to sit in despair, in darkness, with no hope, no opportunities, and to heck with that. I'm not having it. These people have got potential. They just need support and help.
Which is a unique opportunity, isn't it? Are you also getting interest from other groups or people that now know what you're doing? I know Timpson have kind of done this for a while, but
Yeah,
is this
yeah.
something that others are looking at as well to see what happens with Iceland, Paul?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been extraordinary. Iceland is not the biggest player in the retail organization, the big 5 or 6. Iceland Iceland Foods is probably the smallest one. When you think of Tesco's, Lidl, Aldi, Waitrose, all those Morrisons, they're all bigger. But the impact that this has had on the Ministry of Justice, on different organizations and charities, on the prison system, is extraordinary. And I think it's because I've been trying to work out why it's had such an impact when it's such a small organization compared to the other players in the field. I think it's because Iceland is such a community-based retail store. It's right in the heart of these communities of homes. It's not on the outskirts of the towns like maybe Tesco's or whatever, the big stores, Morrison's or Aldi and Lidl. These are right on the high street, because most of the Iceland stores, if I'm correct, are the old Woolworth stores when Woolworths went bankrupt. So Malcolm Walker bought all the stores. They were the stores that Sir Malcolm first got. So they're embedded in the community. So it's had such an impact to one point where I've just done a video for the Ministry of Justice about Justice Me. They've started this new series about what people think about justice. And I got asked to be interviewed. And I did say to them, my background is what my background was, but I'm also a priest. So that's part of my journey. Are you happy with that? And they said, yeah. So I've just done a video for the Ministry of Justice, which has gone everywhere. People want to have a look at it. And it's telling the story, I hope, of hope and redemption, and that we can change. And that, through our mistakes, God can use those into benefiting and helping others. So it's been an extraordinary impact. That different people want to hear about what we're doing. So yes, so some organizations, I won't name them all, have asked me to go and meet with them, and I have, and chatted to them and said, this is what you need to do. They might not want to do what Sir Malcolm did, but I said, well, if that's what you want to do and you want to do it properly, you need to hire someone at a senior level, probably director. You need to throw some money at it. You need to embed it in the system, and you need to get behind it.
Which is
Usually,
amazing, Paul, because you're actually looking at the whole social justice and even, investments people are saying being social. There's a big change occurring, which is nothing short of a miracle. And I just think that he's pioneered that, but he's pioneered so many things, hasn't he, in his model
yes.
and his values, because he's a classic entrepreneur that sees a need and responds to it.
He wrote a book, which is great. I think it's called Better Served Cold. And it's about the story of him founding it 51 years ago. And it is an amazing story. He worked for Woolworths, and if I'm correct, ended up getting sacked from Woolworths as a young man, because one of the stories in the book, I'll probably get in trouble for this, but one of the stories in the book is that they used to sell potatoes, maybe in Woolies, I think it was Woolies, and when they started having their little shoots, when they're going off, they would throw them out. So him and his mate got them when they threw them out and then sold them on the roadside. And then they found out about it and he got the sack. And then they got together and got another stall and started selling strawberries. And, it wasn't working with the two blokes selling them, but they got their two girlfriends to sell the strawberries, and they got rid of all the strawberries in one day. And then they bought a shop, and then they start, and so he is a real entrepreneur, and he's 74 now, I think, and he's on that board meeting every Monday, and he is as sharp as a razor. He really is. And so, but he's got the heart as well, you see.
Brilliant. Paul, it's been great to have this conversation and just to hear some of the stories and obviously the big transition, to see how it's been working out. Final comment, really, we're right on the edge of time here, Paul, and you made a big transition. It's a massive move. I remember you saying, got the car, got the mobile phone, I'm now a director. It's all a brand new world. How's it been? Just sum it up.
It's been an extraordinary roller coaster. I stood at the back of the church one day, where I worked, and I just said, Lord, I'm a little bit bored. I think my work here is done, but I'm not sure. That's all I prayed. And then I got a phone call, and then I'm in a different career. So it's been really exciting. And I would encourage anyone not to be fearful about talking about their faith, discreetly and humbly in the workplace, because it's an amazing opportunity just to go, yeah, no, I'm a priest, and just be cool about it and leave it hanging, because people want to know, but they want to know you first before they want to know about the God stuff. And I think it's an amazing opportunity, and I love it.
It was great to hear Paul Cowley, and to know how it's developing within Iceland is phenomenal. God is doing some amazing things with the social enterprise within Iceland that Paul is doing. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to being back with you again. Wherever you listen to podcasts, it's been a real joy to partner with UCB and Revelation Trust.